Premed Office Hours, episode 161. I am Dr. Ryan Gray, your moderator for the day, creator of the Medical School HQ Premed Years podcast, written some books, and co-founder at Mapped. And I am privileged to be joined by a couple of my colleagues today. Courtney Lewis, former director of admissions at Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine, emo, goth, punk person, and amazing video gamer, the secret that nobody knows, that now everyone knows. How you doing, Courtney?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Seattle is actually sunny today, so it's a wonderful day to sit inside at my computer. I'm excited for this part of the week every week, so happy to be here.
Nice. And we have Verinia Granum, former assistant dean of the pre-health and STEM advising at Hofstra University, hanging out in New York, where the weather probably is also hot because it's hot everywhere in this world right now.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. At least the humidity. I'm good. The humidity's not too bad. But it's just typical New York City summer.
New York City summer. Well, we are here for the next hour to answer your pre-med questions. If you're watching on Instagram, hello, come over to premed.tv. That is our YouTube channel. That's where we'll take questions for today. If you don't want to ask questions and you want to be on Instagram, you can still hang out and listen and learn. Before we jump into questions, though, all of us, the three of us, as well as the rest of the medical school HQ team, is going to be in Baltimore in October. Courtney, what are we doing there?
We are having an in-person MappedCon, which will be tailored to pre-health professionals like yourself. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have tabling. So a lot of our med school friends that we have contact with, deans and directors and things like that, will also be there to chat with you guys. We'll have panels. We're teaching some basics like suturing, CPR, things like that, so you can get those checked off and get yourself some jobs with, I guess, in medical or clinical aspects. And it's a good way to network and advocate for yourself. With everything having gone virtual, when I was, kind of talking to other deans and directors when I was a director, they were so disappointed that attendance had gone down at some of these in-person events, because that's where they felt like they actually got to meet applicants and put a face to the application and really have a conversation and get to know somebody, where it removes a lot of the doubt that can kind of creep up when you're having such a limited 30-minute window to see somebody even virtually and no longer in person for interviews. So drop what you're doing. Come and advocate for yourself. Come and meet these deans and directors. Come and participate in these workshops. Even if you're applying right now, we're still doing practice for interviews. It's still good to make connections with these people. What if you ended up on a wait list later? What if you got an interview out of it? Yep. It's still a really good thing if you're prepping for an application cycle in the next coming years. Better to build that rapport now, learn some of these things, get some of these skills so you can get jobs. Cannot emphasize this enough. I'm always going to be on this soapbox of you need to come and be there in person. These med schools are coming specifically to talk to pre-med students. That's why they're there. And we need pre-med students to show up and do that advocacy for yourself. It's the best way to do it. So. And we'll just be hanging out, being cool, like always.
Being cool, yeah.
Just getting to know people as well, making connections.
Yep. That's what we'll be doing October 6th through 8th. It's Friday nights. We'll have a awesome night of stuff, more targeted around non-trad students, but anyone can come and learn. We'll have some breakout sessions there as well, some breakout meetups. Saturday is a full day of programming and tabling. The schools are going to be there meeting you and interacting with you, networking with you. And then Sunday morning into early afternoon, more sessions, workshops, all kinds of amazing stuff. So come get your early bird ticket. We still have some tickets. Courtney.
One thing I do want to mention is, I know people may be hesitant if you don't have a lot of friends that can go and you're worried about going by yourself. We're aware that it may be hard to go to a conference all alone. We're going to have ways to get to know people, even if we need to kind of facilitate that and finding people groups or housing, you know, like hotel accommodations, make sure you're booking through also us, because you get a bigger discount than if you're just looking online. But don't be hesitant if it's just you coming. You don't need other people to come. We can help out in that regard. It's still good. So
awesome.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. I just did a podcast episode about conferences and how to make the most of them. The episode number is, where to go? I just had it. premedyears.com/537. So go check that out. All right, let's answer some questions, assuming we have some. Jacob asks, hey there, I'm a current student in an SMP program in Texas, and I'm taking my MCAT on August 26th. My primaries for TMDSAS and ACOMAS are submitted and verified. Should I be concerned about my timeline? The lovely timeline question, an August 26th MCAT score, Verinia, the score's not, or MCAT date, the score is not going to come back for another month. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's late in the cycle. Should you be concerned? Yeah, potentially. But you already submitted. So at this point, you know, it's out there, it's in the works. Don't worry about it. What's the alternative? Right?
Yeah. I love that question, right? What else are you going to do? Give up? And it's interesting. I've seen some data from TMDSAS that shows people who submit May, June, July historically take up the bulk of the interviews. Now, that data leaves out, well, when is their application actually complete, right? Submitted versus complete are two totally different timelines. Courtney, talk about that for a second, because I think a lot of students are confused about what complete actually means.
Sure. Yeah. So you can go through the verification process and submit information to the school, potentially get a secondary depending on their pre-screening process. But, you know, you may be missing a letter of recommendation that I need. I may need to verify your prereqs. You need to turn in your secondary. And that's when it's actually considered complete, when I have all of the bits of information that I need to give you the review for consideration for an interview. So that's the difference between the verified complete, meaning you came into my inbox, versus I can process you and put you up for consideration for progress or a different path.
Yep.
So different dates.
Different dates. Yeah. So not ideal, but is what it is.
The other question I would ask is this your first time taking the MCAT? Because if you have a prior score, they'll see that you have an upcoming test date at least. But you may want to reach out to tell them to hold if you're waiting. You want to wait to be reviewed until that score comes out, versus them using an older or a lower score or whatever it is. Obviously, one that you're not wanting to move forward with, instead of using that for their evaluation, since they have it. So
yeah, it's interesting. As far as I know, it seems like that's the standard, that schools will do that anyway. You think it's important to reach out just in case?
I've heard some. Some will process you with just what they have in front of them. But
that's mean.
It is. But I would say more times than not. I mean, if I see an upcoming MCAT, I'm going to assume that somebody wants me to hold unless told otherwise. So just know. Okay. Think about it.
All right.
Yeah, Jacob, I would just make sure to get everything else done in the meantime. Whatever secondaries you're getting in, make sure they've been sent out. Follow up on your letter writers if you're still waiting on any outstanding LORs, so that the only thing that they're waiting on is your MCAT score.
Yep. Amina, I've submitted most of my secondaries, and although it's early, I was wondering if you have any interview tips and when we should send update letters, like around November, ? Interviews. I have a whole book about it, the Premed Playbook Guide to the Medical School Interview, potentially starting there. Courtney, where should someone start with interview prep?
Now is the perfect time, honestly. It's it's almost never too early to start in this regard. But now would be a great time. What you don't want to do is kind of wait until you get an interview invite. You want to be optimistic here, because if you wait and you have an option to pick a date that's 3 days away, or the next one is 3 months out because everything else has been booked, you're probably going to take the one that's 3 days away. And if you haven't done any prep, it's going to be problematic. So I would say the sooner the better. Interview tips is going to be practice, practice, practice. And it's not just thinking to yourself how you would address a question. You need to verbalize your responses. You have to practice verbalizing them. Somebody needs to be watching you. Or, as cringy as it is, use your phone to record yourself with eye contact, how you answer it, because different nuances to the question will change how you answer it, even if you've thought through the topic. So start practicing, utilize people around you, us, whomever it is, but you need to verbalize your responses and research the school. I would say look at their mission. If it's very focused on pumping out physicians into that region, you should probably know a little bit about the region or the population around that school and things like that. Some of the ways in which you want to get involved. So those would be my tips.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it, right? Working with us, we don't talk about our one-on-one services a lot, but we do. Yeah. The majority of our day is spent working with students one-on-one. That's what helps pay our bills so that we can come and do these free things for you, which is fun. So if you want to do some one-on-one mock interviews with some former directors of admissions, with other pre-med experts, go over to medicalschoolhq.net and check out our advising services mock interview stuff.
Well, Verinia would probably agree. Is I think after mock interviews in particular, you see the most growth in like a student, because they've already put in the work for like their primary application. It's just, you know, making sure it comes across as polished or it's focusing on the right thing. But interviews make such a drastic difference. And from the first session to the final session, there's usually so much growth, and it just makes all the difference in the cycle. We always hear good feedback from that.
Yep.
Verinia, the second part of this question is, hey, any tips on when we should send update letters? To me, I cringe a little bit with that question, because it's like, you don't have to send update letters, right? I think you should potentially think about update letters as a special thing that you may want to send. Talk about your thought process here.
Sure. First of all, you want to check and see if the school even accepts them. A lot of schools will post, nope, we don't want them. We're not interested. You already told us everything we needed to know. Thank you very much. So check that the schools actually will accept update letters. If they do, update them when you have something meaningful to update them on. An update letter shouldn't be, I am still interested in your school. I still really want to go there. An update letter should be, I was working on this project that I talked about in my primary, and now it's completed. Here, this is what I've done. This is what I've been up to. Or maybe you started something new that's relevant to the school's mission and goals, and really, really you're excited about it, and you really want to talk about that. Those are meaningful updates. Beyond that, they really, unfortunately, don't really serve a purpose. And you don't know if they're even going to read it, honestly. So again, just think very hard about what it is that you want to update them on, and consider whether it's meaningful enough to let them know if they accept it.
Yeah. Or it'll end up in the circular file bin. It's a trash can, people, for those
AKA.
Not those rectangular things that we have these days. You need old school metal circle trash cans. The good old days.
Or the shredder. Recycle.
Or the shredder. Yeah. Awesome. Good question. Let's keep rocking. Again, if you're on Instagram, you can ask questions over at premed.tv. That's where we're taking questions and where we're streaming for the most part on our YouTube channel. Dawa asks, are you supportive of the idea of giving my professor a gift at the beginning of the semester to make a connection, since I will ask for a letter of rec at the end of the year? No, that is called manipulation.
Risky behavior is what that is. Don't do it.
Yeah. No.
I would say after they give you the recommendation letter, you can say,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank
You've
you.
been an amazing professor. You know, regardless of the outcome of my application, I've learned so much. Here's a nice gift card to Starbucks or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing fancy.
Yeah. And it's not expected. I think it's not necessary. It's not mandatory. I love, there's someone I listen to who always talks about doing things with the expectation of something in return is not a favor. It's manipulation. And so that's, to me, that's why I said it's manipulation. It's not a gift, it's a bribe.
Yeah. Not a good look.
Fran, would colleges be satisfied with creative writing courses or courses that follow an artistic route versus intensive writing courses, provided that the MSAR does not supply a clear answer? We were actually just talking a little bit about this. There's a student, Verinia, that you're working with, who took some classes at an undergraduate institution outside of Texas. English specifically, so it's interesting this question came up. Maybe it's the same student. That TMDSAS is saying, hey, this doesn't meet our English prereqs, and so we're going to have an issue, and the student is appealing. Talk about this process here.
Sure.
You're going through this with a student.
Yeah. So they had to appeal. They took 2 courses that didn't meet the prereqs for Texas, or at least that's what TMDSAS is saying. And they have to go through a process where they submit the syllabus. It takes several weeks, so it's delaying things a little bit. So I would, proceed carefully. I'm of the thinking that avoid that headache, and just, if you know this is what's required, then if you're in a position now to take them now. I would start, if you've already taken them and you can't go back and take more classes now, maybe from now, start calling a few schools that you're interested in and say, I've taken these courses. What does this look like? You may get an answer, you may not. I think what they're looking for, though, is standard composition. So it's hard to say that creative writing, yes, one assumes that you have an idea of what standard English composition requires. But it's hard to say whether or not a school is going to accept it. I would say save yourself the headache later and just take a regular intensive writing type course. Yeah.
Prereqs you don't want to play with.
No, and you're not learning grammar and structure in creative writing, right? You're so there are things they're looking for in standard written English that are not taught in a creative writing class.
All right. There you go, Fran. Omar asks, C's in a few prereqs, not a great GPA, not sure what to do to get out of this hole. Won't most relevant postbacks just be repeat of the courses? Courtney, we often talk about upward trends and trying to prove academic capability. What kind of words of wisdom do you have for Omar to figure out how to dig himself out of this hole?
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like that's kind of what you're going to need to do. It will depend on kind of what your needs are for what would be most beneficial. So I would say if you have C's and prereqs and you're saying, well, isn't it just a repeat of courses? Yeah, probably, but is that problematic? No, I'd like to see you do well in those courses. They're foundational to a lot of the material I'm going to be teaching you once you reach medical school. And I need to know that you can handle those, probably taken, a couple at a time and perform well for you as a student now versus who you were when you first took them, to remove some of the risk and just kind of give them the information that they would need to assess academic risk there. Because what we don't want to do is see these Cs, maybe an MCAT that kind of correlates, that's not as strong, that would kind of show maybe you didn't have a full grasp of the material, and then throw you into 36 credit hours and a lot of debt of medical school when we had evidence that maybe you needed a little bit more foundational preparation. So you need to do that. Changing your GPA may be difficult because once you get a certain number of credits under your belt, that needle doesn't move very much a lot of the time. And so it's going to be more about the trend than it will be in making huge jumps in your GPA, most likely. So pick something that fits your needs. But yeah, it would be a repeat of the courses, and that's not necessarily problematic.
Yep. Go get her done, Omar.
Yep.
The just one final question on that for Omar is, I see too often students jump from getting those season prereqs to doing post-bac work, whether formal, informal, whatever, repeating the same mistakes, right? So first and foremost, Omar, figure out why you're getting poor grades now and make sure that you have solved those issues before jumping in and doing more.
For sure.
Benita, how does one write about temporary disability which affected the road to become a doctor? Verinia, does one need to write about a temporary disability which affected the road to become a doctor?
Not necessarily, at least not in the personal statement, right? The personal statement is all about why you want to be a doctor. However, AMCAS does offer opportunities to talk about other impactful experiences in your life, such as a temporary disability that may have affected your grades, your ability to pursue this path for whatever reason. And that's just more of a straightforward short essay on what the situation was, how you overcame it, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't worry too much about it in terms of the personal statement, but you can potentially use the other impactful experiences essay to provide context around what that was and how it affected you.
Yeah. I think the big question mark would be potentially, how does this affect how someone views your ability to complete medical school? Courtney, talk about, it's something we don't talk about often, but technical standards is a term that schools, it's a document basically that says, here's what we expect all of our students to be able to do. Talk about that.
Yeah, so there's kind of a national standardized set of technical skills that cover, which most schools, probably almost every school, has adopted to kind of use to make sure that somebody can kind of make it through the curriculum with reasonable accommodations. So, there's times where people wear religious coverings. That's completely okay. There may need to be some adjustments made and things like that. So they will work with you on that. But there may be some disabilities where you won't be able to complete a portion of the curriculum and things like that. And so they would need to take that into consideration. But they're published. You could go through and read them. It also talks about, what reasonable accommodations are, what they kind of look like, what they can be. To give you some context of those, if you think you're going to seek that out, it's totally fine to get those. We want to help kind of as best we can kind of make that a smooth transition and for you to be able to complete the curriculum. But yeah, they're called minimal technical standards, and they are out there.
They're out there.
You sign attesting that you can perform the functions within that have been laid out. So you do sign saying that you can.
Yeah. So there may be some confusion around this from an ADA perspective, right? The Americans with Disabilities Act. It doesn't go against ADA to say, hey, we expect you to do X, Y, or Z. Based on what the requirements are for this job. And so I talked to a student recently on the Premed Years podcast who has a condition that limits her severely based on her abilities. And so she was smart enough to go through technical documents and go, let me look at each school and see what they say. And she was able to kind of put together a list of, I think it was like 8 or 10 schools where based on her condition, she met the technical standards for those 8 or 10 schools, whatever it was. And every other school she didn't. And so she just knew, like, my chances are going to be put into the hands of these 8 schools. She ended up getting several interviews, several acceptances. So for her, it worked out at the end, in the end of the day. And it kind of just goes to, hey, those schools, you're probably going to be supported because they're potentially a little more lenient with their technical standards because they understand how to accommodate students. Maybe they have students in the past that they've had to accommodate. And so good for her. And Benita, for you. But again, do you need to talk about it? I think is the first question. That other impactful experiences essay, I think is a great spot for that potentially. So
you won't have that on a COMIS, but maybe in a secondary application if it doesn't fit into your, if it doesn't go into your personal statement, if it doesn't fit that content. So, but if it was temporary, we may not need to know about it.
Yep. Gianna asks, just finished my freshman year at college and had some bad circumstances and finished with only a 3.1 GPA. How realistic is it to get my GPA high enough for medical school? Math is math, Courtney, and 3.1 after only 1 year. Big deal,
seen
not
worse.
Big deal.
Yeah.
It's not a 0.
I've seen worse. It's above a 3.0. That's great. A lot of people take the first year to kind of get stabilized. You know, it's going to be an uphill journey from here, hopefully, because, you know, once you set that GPA, the more credits you add, the harder it's going to be to bring it up. But you need to kind of make that transition. If you need to take advantage of resources, office hours, supplementary things, if you just need to devote more time to studying, whatever it needs to be, this is very achievable for you still. You just need to probably be disciplined and take advantage of some of these things and really be disciplined with your schedule and your time, because this is a path that does have a very rigorous academic course load throughout. And even when you graduate and you go through residency, you're still being tested. And then you have to do continuing medical education credits and things. So if you're on it for the long haul, just do what you need to. There are learning specialists and advisors and people that can help you lay that out, but all is not lost, especially after a freshman year. But buckle down though.
Yeah. Same comment as before to the other student who needs to do some post-bac work is, why did you only have a 3.1? Was it just these bad circumstances, or did you not have the necessary skills in place to handle the bad circumstances and still get good grades? Because I think a big mistake that I as a human have made over and over and over again is assuming there's going to be clear paths ahead. Mike Tyson's famous quote, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. I think you should assume you're going to get punched in the face every single semester, and you need to have the resiliency to continue to get good grades.
Yeah. It's a great quote.
I love that.
I've definitely got punched in the face in my life.
Over and over and over and over.
Lot. Yeah. But I mean, freshman year, it is okay. I wouldn't say it's uncommon. And life happens. We certainly understand all of that. So
yeah. Dare I say, Verinia, that potentially
hi.
Hello there. Like
whoa.
Wait, that side. Tickle your ear. I give you a wet willy. No, it's too close. The Verinia, dare I say, this potentially may even be a good thing, right? This may show some resiliency on the student's behalf. Talk about that and what that looks like.
I was just thinking about that too. From here on out, now you know you did get, unfortunately, you got punched in the face. Now, you're going to stay down or you're going to move up, or you're going to get up and keep going, right? That's all. That's what life is. It's all about facing challenges and building resilience to be able to move on. And like Ryan, you're saying, it's kind of what builds your character and helps you understand your motivations now. Now you have to understand, why am I doing this? What do I want? What are my goals? Can I do this? Absolutely. Just keep going, keep moving up. And by the time you apply, you'll be able to reflect on all this and see how much you've grown. and show that in your application. And that's exactly what medical schools are looking for. Yes, you need to have the academic capability for medical school, but even more importantly, even more important is that resilience and that grit and being able to grow from your past mistakes and challenges. Very important.
Yep. All right. Jackie asks, non-trad here, worked as a PCT for about a year in 2021. Plan on applying to medical school in 2026, and I wanted to get more clinical work, but PCT jobs don't pay well. Also working 15 hours. Any suggestions? Yeah, go get some more clinical work.
I mean,
Not as a
keep
PCT.
looking.
Yeah, any job. Doesn't have to be PCT. Sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
No, that I'm just agreeing. I'm
Mhm.
not saying anything of value. Just
Yep.
go look for opportunities.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, entry-level positions tend to not pay very well, but that's, and I get it. Everyone has bills. You have to pay your bills. But the goal here is to pay your bills and gain clinical experience. So maybe you work somewhere else and then volunteer your time to get that clinical experience. That's another option too.
Yep.
You go. Awesome. We still need to work on that. Is it clinical tool?
Yeah.
Someday.
Is
One
it
day.
clinical?
Someday. Okay.
I think of like those old shows. Like,
Yep. Casey asks, I have an advising appointment at 2 p.m. today right after this. How can I plead my case to get a letter of rec down the road next year? Not enough info. Come back with some more details. Why do you need to plead your case for a letter of rec? And why are you getting a letter of rec from an advising appointment? Is this a professor? Are you talking about a committee letter? If you need to plead your case, do they have requirements for that committee letter? And we need some more info there, Casey.
Yeah.
Nick asks, I signed up as a community volunteer MMI interviewer for a particular medical school for this cycle. I'm planning on applying next cycle, but not to this particular school. Is this okay for an activity section?
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah. Let me expand a little bit. And here's where I don't have one in front of me, right? The overthinking pre-med club brain kicks in. My assumption from Nick is, and Nick, if you're still watching, I would love to see if you can validate my assumption here, because I've seen it a million times, and I'm sure Courtney and Verinia, you have as well. That Nick is asking, really the question behind the question is it okay that I'm putting this work at one specific medical school on my activity section? Will
Right.
other schools be okay with that? Or will they assume that I want to go to this other school, and so they're not going to interview me and invite me, potentially accept me, etc.? That's what I'm assuming the question actually is.
Mhm.
Nick, let me know. But the answer is yes. You're fine. Put it on there. There's no monogamy expected in this process, unless you're only applying early decision.
It's an interesting analogy, but okay.
And
It's like, yeah, I think Courtney, I mean, maybe you can even talk about this because this comes up all the time with DO schools or students applying to DO schools going, hey, I shadowed an MD. Can I put that on my DO application?
Oh, yeah.
Are they gonna, or even applying to MD schools? Like, they're not expecting, again, the monogamy is a random word that popped into my head. They're not expecting like to be faithful to the DO world.
Yeah. Part of this process is exploring. There may be, we understand that there may be a number of schools that you could thrive at and be happy to go to. And so part of this is us finding a good fit with you and you finding a good fit with us. And so, yeah, we understand that if there's options, that's okay. And part of that is something that you're going to need to figure out. But yeah, it's totally fine. MD, DO, both ways, totally fine. We have faculty that are DOs and MD at schools. So It is what it is.
Is what it is. Yeah. back to MappedCon for a second. We got Elizabeth just bought a ticket for MappedCon as we were here. So if Elizabeth, you're watching, welcome to MappedCon. Excited to see you. If you're watching, go check out mappedcon.com for our speaker lineup and schedule and information about hotels and stuff. It's October 6th through 8th in Baltimore. Orioles are doing well, so postseason play might be happening. We'll see.
Yeah, it won't be against my Yankees likely, but
Judge needs to fix his toe.
He needs to anyway.
Poor guy. That's what happens when you're 6'5",
big guy.
250.
Yeah, exactly. He's a big guy.
Big guy. Casey gave some new and interesting information.
Okay.
For why the plead of case that I'm curious about.
Casey goes, I go to UF, go Gators. I had an advisor tell me I shouldn't apply right out of undergrad because I'm a white male. Hey, they're still giving that advice. Casey, please email me and let me know specifically who it was. I will not call them out publicly, but I know people there. That is the advice that I got. I don't know, 25 years ago. It's the most ludicrous crap in the world. Yeah. Ignore it. Do your thing.
It's so incorrect.
And you don't need
I mean, if there were other things in your application, maybe, but it's certainly not related to what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can
literally, I have told
my goodness.
I have told this story over and over and over again. One of the reasons I talk about collaboration, not competition, is because I had to lean on my exercise physiology classmates to be my pre-med advisors, because my advisor said, you're a white male, you're not going to get into med school. This was 20 something years ago, the same crap that they're still spouting out. So unfortunately, there's something broken there. UF, I love you. I will come and talk to you anytime. But get that crap out of your mouths.
It's just wrong. I mean, if there were other things, I could understand it, but it's inappropriate to tell people this, and it's not true. If that's your only reasoning, it's just not the case.
Yeah. Anyway.
Bummer.
Touch the nerve there.
I'm passionate about that because it hits home for me.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Amen asks, any advice on how to, quote, sell yourself on an interview? Have an MMI interview coming up that specifically states they have a sell yourself station. Okay, good. I was upset in the first half of this question, and now I'm excited for the second half. Courtney, this is a very interesting potential interview station. It reminds me of the like stereotypical sales position job interview of like,
give me your pitch.
Sell me this pen, right? It's like, any advice here?
Yeah, I think you can be confident while still being humble. I think you can, it's going to be tough, but what they don't want to see arrogance. So confidence is okay. Arrogance is another thing. It's not a you versus them. So you don't want to talk down about other people. You can speak to your own strengths, I would say. So I'm really proud of my, the fact that I do this and this, or I really want to get involved in this aspect, kind of marry yourself to the school, show why you guys will be successful together, what you want to take advantage of, what you want to get involved in. Those are all positives, and don't put down anybody else, but give a good vibe of collaboration and wanting to excel and thrive with that school. So I would say that, and don't make it just all about your activities. I don't think I want a chronological recounting of like all of the stuff that you've done necessarily, unless there's like a purpose for you to bring something up. I'd want to know a little bit more about you as a person, or who you're going to kind of be on campus, or those types of things. Kind of like a matchmaker type thing, where you don't want to just talk about your work. You want to talk about kind of multiple aspects of yourself. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, Brittany, any other thoughts here? This is an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, this is everything that we argue against doing, but
Yeah.
completely agree with what Courtney said. I would highlight just your goals and how the school's going to help you achieve that, and most importantly, how you're going to collaborate with others around you. It's not a competition. Yeah, check out Dr. Gray's interview prep book as well for more tips.
Yep. Cool. Good question. Interesting. I'd be interested to know what school that is, and I'd be interested to know if they are specifically saying that's a station they have, or if someone's breaking some NDA rules.
Yeah.
Fill us in. Let us know.
give us the deets.
We won't tell, but we want to know. Fill the tea.
Yes.
Name and shame. Okay.
What time is it? We got time. All right.
Yeah.
Let's rock and roll. Andrew, whenever secondaries ask you to, quote, explain a time or experience, are they asking for a specific example, like a project during class, or can it be something broad, like completing undergrad during COVID? Interesting question, Verinia. I very much, when I see a question like this, I almost always want to know what the full prompt is for the nuance of the prompt, because I think students often miss some of the nuance. But let's assume the prompt is something like, explain a time where you didn't get what you want, right? Something like that. Very common prompt that we see. How would you answer Andrew's question here?
I would say be specific. Be specific, because that's the best way to show, whatever that time was, or, how you overcame a challenge or whatever that is. It's easier to write about that than trying to write about something more broad. But I agree with you. It really does depend on the prompt and what they're asking. So it's hard to kind of give you more based on that. And they're asking, according to your question, for a specific example, right? A time, an experience.
Yep.
So the more details you can provide, the better.
Yeah. To me, a time or experiences is a specific type of question. Yes, specifics almost always answer the question better, in my experience. Shaylee, before I answer ask Shaylee's question here, I want to give away a MappedCon ticket. So if you are here listening right now, and you can make it to Baltimore October 6th through 8th, I would want to know in the comments why you would enjoy coming to MappedCon and what you're hoping to get out of MappedCon. Sell yourself. You have 3 minutes. Go. All right. Shaylee asks, how do med schools view online prerequisites? For context, I had to work 2 jobs to support my family. I need to take online prereqs due to conflict of time. Any advice? This is a short, simple answer that I'll take. It depends on the school. Every school has different rules and requirements on online prereqs. Most of the time, they're pretty cut and dry. They accept them or they don't accept them. Sometimes they'll say case-by-case basis. If you go to the MSAR, you actually don't need the paid MSAR. If you Google MSAR Advisor PDF, there's a whole website for advisors. You can download the PDF, and there's a specific PDF that is for the prereqs. And then for the DO world, the Choose DO Explorer may have some of that information as well, or go to the individual websites. So unfortunately, not cut and dry.
Or it is cut and dry.
Or it is cut and dry. Yeah.
They either do or they don't. And they will have an opinion. Yep.
Yeah, I think Hopkins, I talk about often, they are the shining example in this world. I think it's what's the right what's that word where it's like you do one thing or you say one thing but you did a different thing.
Hypocritical?
Yeah, hypocritical. That is the word. It's super hypocritical for a lot of these med schools out here to say we will not accept online prereqs when during COVID they taught med school online. And so Hopkins Medical School was, I think, the first clear example of a school that was like, if we could teach med school online, why can't someone take physics online? And so they have updated their policies to say we are going to accept online prereqs, online courses before COVID, during COVID, after COVID. That's our new policy. So good for you, Hopkins Med School, and hopefully more med schools follow suit because, again, hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's not following the Hippocratic Oath if you're hypocritical.
I can tell you it's
Or is
not
that a
the
different
admissions
person?
office pushing that. It's the faculty. Many a conversations over that.
That's
in my
fine.
day.
Someone needs a spine to stand up for the student. All right. Mary asks, how would you all view a letter of rec from a nurse? I'm a CNA and I've worked with her for over a year, so I figured she had a unique perspective on how I work in a clinical environment. This is another interesting question, kind of going to the prereq question, Courtney, is med schools have typically a very specific list of prereqs that they want / require. And then some will say, hey, if you got some other letters up to a certain amount, is it bad to have a letter of rec from a nurse?
No. Short answer, no. I would say there's some difference here between the AMCAS application and a COMIS. With AMCAS, when you're applying to MD schools, some schools are very specific in what they want and the quantity that they want, and you only want to give them those. And so if what they want is 2 science letter and a physician and only those, then it's a bit of a problem. If they say you can supply 4, we want these 3 and the other one is optional, then that's great. That works for that one. You're going to have a strong letter of recommendation. If they say, we'll take any 6, one of them just has to be clinical, great. That works for that too. So it's very nuanced. It'll be school dependent on what they're looking for. I'd still try to find a way to get a physician since you are applying to a school that will train you to be a physician. If you can, even if it's just from short shadowing or things like that, if you could, somebody's willing to write you a strong letter, then that'll be good. And then this one will be supplemental and from somebody who knows you better. But it depends in this one, and it will be school dependent.
Yep. Omar, hello again. How do I reach out to med schools in my area? Cold emails have failed me for so long, and the med school I tried walking into for info basically told me most of the staff doesn't even come to the facility. Yes, please do not just drop into a medical school saying, hey, I'm here. I want some information. That is a very common thing in the college space, the undergraduate world. It is not expected or welcomed in the med school world. Don't do that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We actually talked about this in the parent group last night. This came up of don't do drop-ins. Don't do them. I would check the website to see if they have tour days or events or things like that you can go to, but drop-ins are a no-go with med schools. Most of them are locked down. Most of them don't have dedicated people that are just ready and available. This isn't like undergrad where they have 20 people who are antsy to just show you everything on campus. So this would be a no-go. I would say look for the certain things that they host on the times that they host them and go to those.
Yeah. My question is, Omar, what are you looking for? Right? It's like, if you're like, hey, med school, I want some info. Great. That's why we have a website. Right? Go to the website. So I'd be interested to know what specifically you're looking for.
Yeah. And every year the AAMC puts on a virtual fair. ACOMAS does the same thing. So check out those virtual fairs. That's the best place to kind of get a sense, of different events, different activities, things going on where you can learn about the school too. So no cold calls, no drop-ins.
All right.
That's why I
have a
need to
couple-
do my road trip so I can show people what's inside these school doors.
Yep.
Yeah, and podcasts too. Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. We have a couple more minutes. Did anyone talk about wanting to go to MappedCon?
Yeah, there were a number of people.
Yeah. Go ahead and throw a couple up and let's see who wins. Give out a ticket.
Oh, so that school that had the Sell Yourself, it was JSSOM in Texas.
JSSOM?
Mm-hmm.
UTMB. I hate these rich people donating lots of money that changes the names of med schools. Please stop doing it. Like it's UTMB.
Okay.
JSSOM is John Seeley School of Medicine.
I've never heard of John Seeley, but I've heard of the other one.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Stop doing that. All right. I guess you're rich. You can do what you want with your money. It makes it harder for us, though. All right. Who's wanting to go to MappedCon? Charbel says the value of an in-person conference, in addition to the skills and the beneficial seminars, are just next level to help prepare myself for medical school. Plus, meeting the Mapped team is amazing after all. Yes, that is true. I like that comment. Let's see some others. Keep that one high on the list. Jacques says, I would love to go. Honestly, I don't know that my situation is much different from many others, but I'm eager to have this be a part of my journey. MappedCon 2023. Woo! Any others? Fran, I would love to take my daughter. We're a team. Even when she is away from school, we listen in long distance from each other. Love it. So Fran is the parent in the situation. Casey would enjoy going to Baltimore because I'm applying next cycle and would love the confidence boost. I've had a lot of struggles in my facets of life and been discouraged a lot. Having people who represent a medical school advise me and reassure me my value would be very impactful. And Casey's a Gator, so I don't know. Got a little chip on my shoulder there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Can I just add one thing to this comment, Casey, though?
Yeah.
You want them to reassure you of your value, but that's not what they need to do, right? You need to be aware of your value. You don't need someone else to reassure you of that. What you want is reassurance that you're on the right path, which is different. And you are.
Love it. Any others?
Let's see.
Yeah, I can't find any more.
Okay.
Okay.
How many were there? 4?
This one?
May
Did
as
we
a
go over
resident.
this one?
My network is just beginning to grow. The medical field is more or less a passion of mine. This event gives me the opportunity to glimpse into my future and build my network. I love it.
You,
all right.
You early pre-med.
Early pre-med. So
These
who's
are
going to
tough.
win?
These are tough.
Who's going to win? I have an answer. Everyone's going to win. Everyone
Yay!
email info at map.com and just state your name and that we showed your comment. This is only for people who we showed their comment. We're going to stop showing comments there. And we will get you a free ticket to MappedCon. So
Derek and Dr. Gray's very tall.
I'm not tall.
He's very tall. He's like 9 feet tall.
I'm almost 5'11".
So actually, when we were in LA and we had a dinner, Ryan and I had a bunch of the people that were in and around town, the students, when we went and met with them. That was a comment that one of the students made was we were both taller than expected. I was like, oh, okay, that's good. Taller and skinnier.
And thinner, yes. I think was the answer too. Yeah,
that was good. Taller and thinner. And I was like, okay, cool. Thank you. That's always great.
Awesome. Verinia Courtney, thank you so much for joining Pre-Med Office Hours. We in different parts of our team are here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern here on premed.tv. So come hang out, ask your questions. It's free Premed advising. So why wouldn't you?
Okay.
I am typically on Instagram live as well on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern on our Medical School HQ channel. I will not be there this Friday, though, but you can check us out over there. And yeah, if you want some help with your mock interviews, go check out medicalschoolhq.net and see how we can help you with that. Thank you so much for joining today. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.